those that don't know, Marty Kiar, he's a lifelong Broward County resident, born and raised in Broward County. He roots here in the community, and his accolades go on and on. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Oh,
And
thank you.
just like I said, we're just so honored to have you here,
Thank
Marty.
you.
And he was also elected to the Florida House of Representatives, being reelected 2008 and 2010. So great public service record. And we just want to go ahead and give you the floor. Thank you again.
Great. Oh, well, thank you so much, Melissa. I really appreciate that. I've really been looking forward to coming on today. And, I have to tell you, one, you are wonderful. Everybody that works over your office is wonderful. And I love our real estate community because what I love most about this job is you get to help everybody. You get to help thousands of people. And the best way to reach people, honestly, about how for us to be able to help them is when people in the real estate community let their clients and other folks know what we can do. And I cannot tell you the amount of people that realtors and folks in the real estate industry send to our office and have us contact us every single day that we get to help save money. And it's great. It's veterans, seniors, everybody you can think of. So I really appreciate this. And for anybody on the call that I haven't met, again, my name is Marty Kiar. I'm very honored to be your Broward County Property Appraiser. Melissa said a little about myself, but I'll tell you a little bit more about me and then how our office can help our Broward community. As Melissa said, I've lived in Broward County my entire life. I actually went to Western High School a long time ago. It used to not feel like a long time ago, but it's been about 25 years since I've graduated. So I'm feeling very old lately, but that's okay. After that, I went to a small school and played baseball called Palm Beach Atlantic University. Then I came back home and I went to law school at Nova Southeastern University. And right about that time is when I met my incredibly beautiful wife. Her name is Kelly. As I said before, I always tell people I married up and she settled and nobody disagrees. And the way that I met her is one day during law school, I decided to go work out at Bally's Total Fitness across the street. And I walked in and I saw this person that worked there that I never saw before, and she was beautiful. And I walked up to her, asked her out, and weirdly enough, she said yes, and the rest is history. And so we have been married for some time now. We have two very beautiful little girls. They are 11 and 8, and they are the light of my life. My 8-year-old still hugs me and loves me. My 11-year-old is starting to kind of move away a little bit and it's freaking me out because it used to be that she would do that as well. And I told her, I go, you're not supposed to do this until you're in your teens. You're supposed to love daddy till your teens. But I do hear that they always come back, but I just adore them. They are the best. In 2006, as Melissa mentioned, I was elected to serve in the Florida House of Representatives. I represented all of Western Broward County. I was reelected a few times. And then after that, I was elected to serve the same area on the Broward County Commission. And I became the mayor of Broward County in 2016. And then the same time in 2016, everybody in Broward County was nice enough to elect me to be their new Broward County Property Appraiser. I was reelected recently again for another 4-year term. And I have to tell you, this, as I said before, is the greatest job I've ever had because you get to interact with everybody in the county and the nature of the job lets you help people. And by the way, if I'm talking too fast, I apologize. I've had like 5 cups of coffee, 2 Red Bulls, and a Diet Coke. So I'm wired, but I'm excited. And I'm the only person in the world that gets excited over property appraiser stuff. So I'm very enthusiastic. So there's a few things that our office does and for the community, and they play a very big impact for the community. The most important thing that we do is we determine the value of every piece of property in Broward County for tax purposes, whether it's residential, commercial, tangible personal property, or centrally assessed property, which are railroads. And the reason that's important is because when you pay your property taxes, the amount of taxes you pay is the relationship between the value of the property that we set and the tax rate set by your local government. So the higher the value of the property, the more taxes you pay. The lower the value of the property, the lower amount of taxes you pay. And so the most important thing is we want to make sure we just get it right because people should only pay their fair share of property taxes on their accurate, true value. And so what I always tell everybody, go on our website at bcpa.net, type in your property and see what we have it assessed for. And if you disagree with it, give me a call, email me, call me, let's go through it together. And you may have information that we don't have that can help us, for example, reduce the value, which will reduce your taxes. Or we can explain to you exactly how we arrived at whatever the particular value is. The second thing that we do, and this is what I love most about my job, and this is where folks in the real estate industry really help us, is we give tax saving exemptions to folks that qualify. And there are a lot of exemptions under Florida law that people qualify for that can save them a significant amount of money. And I know that I think everybody feels the same way I do. The more money you can put in your pocket, the better life you can live. And that is very, very important. And the most important exemption by far is the homestead exemption. What it basically means, if you live here in Broward County, you've made this your primary residence. It's where you raise your family. It's where your home is, where you're registered to vote, where your car is registered to. It's basically where you live. You get a homestead exemption. What that basically means, $50,000 of value will be taken off the tax roll right at the beginning. That can save you maybe $800, $900, $1,000 a year. But most importantly, it really helps you going forward. Because once you get a homestead exemption, every year thereafter, the value you're taxed on, your assessed value, can't go up more than 3%, even if your market value skyrockets. So this year, for example, let's say your market value goes up 50, 60, 70%. The maximum amount your homestead property value can go up for tax purposes is 3%. It really keeps your property value that you pay taxes on manageable, so you won't be taxed out of your home. Once you get a homestead exemption, there are many other exemptions that people qualify for. My favorite by far is the low-income senior exemption. And the reason being is because Broward County is a big place. More people live here than 13 states, the District of Columbia, and all U.S. territories except Puerto Rico. It's big. And about a third of our population are seniors. And also our most impoverished portion of our population overall are also seniors. And as I said before, I believe if you can help seniors save a little bit of money to put in their pocket, they can better make ends meet and live a better life. And so I love the low-income senior exemption. We give thousands and thousands of these out every single year. And what it basically means is if you're 65 years of age or older, you make under 30, well, last year was $30,721. You made under that. And if a senior doesn't file income taxes, Social Security doesn't count. If they do file income taxes, they have to look at their adjusted gross income line on their tax statement. If that is under that number, they get basically another homestead exemption. So think about this. Imagine your mom or your dad or a grandparent or somebody you know lives in Century Village, Pembroke Pines, and we've assessed the value of their property to $100,000. They get a homestead exemption, $50,000 taken off the value. They don't pay tax on. They get a low-income senior exemption, another $25,000 taken off the tax roll. What that really means is they'd only be paying taxes on $25,000 of value, or with those exemptions, their taxes are basically 1/3 of what they would have been without any exemptions. There are many other exemptions as well. Some are very large and some are very small, and you can stack the exemptions to reduce your tax bill. A good example of some very large exemptions are for totally and permanently disabled veterans or first responders. If you're a totally permanently disabled veteran and you're 100% disabled and it's service connected, you're fully exempt from paying all property taxes. And actually, this is something that we've actually worked with realtors on, which have helped people afford more properties. And let me give you an example and something that we do with our realtor community. If let's say you're talking to a client and you're showing the client that property, and they just happen to say to you, yeah, I was in the Vietnam War and I'm 100% disabled and it's all service connected. Well, right off the top, you may think, you know what, you might be exempt from paying property taxes. And you know, when you buy a home, you're thinking of two things. One, is to be a great place for me to live and raise my family. And two, can I afford the monthly payment? And the monthly payment is the mortgage, the insurance, and the taxes. That's the big three. And if you could tell them right off the top that there's a possibility you may not have to pay property taxes, that may actually help them afford that property or a bigger property. So I always tell everybody, if you have that situation, email me. Or call me and I'll send you an email back that basically says, okay, based on these facts, the year after they purchase that home, if they provide us this specific documentation, they'll be fully exempt from paying property taxes, and you could actually give that to them, and that may actually help them afford a property. There are many other exemptions as well. You have exemptions for widows, for people who are visually impaired. You have other disability exemptions. And it's my goal as a Broward County Property Appraiser to find every person in Broward County entitled to a tax saving exemption and to give it to them. Another thing I like to talk about with realtors is portability, because portability really gives people the opportunity to hopefully be able to buy a new home and to afford that home. And here's the way it works. Once you bought your initial home, you filed for homestead. And when you did that, that assessment cap kicked into place. That was at 3%. It basically said that every year thereafter, the maximum value of your property could go up for tax purposes 3%. So over time, because of that cap, your market value gets pretty high and your assessed value can stay lower. So you have all this value in between you don't pay taxes on. You could be saving thousands of dollars a year. If you now decide to buy another home of equal value or greater value, you can take whatever that difference is between your market value and your assessed value that you don't pay taxes on and move it to your new home and not pay taxes on it. If you buy a home of lower value, you take a percentage of that and you can go on our website at bcpa.net, use our portability estimator, or you can just email me and I'll let you know basically what what the new taxes will be based on this year's millage rates. It's, you know, portability is an excellent thing. And let me give you a real world example of it. And this is kind of an extreme example. So the maximum amount of value that you can move over is $500,000 of value if you've accumulated that. And there was a couple that contacted me a couple years ago, and they lived in the city of Weston. And they lived in Weston Hills, and they bought Weston Hills when Weston Hills was being developed. And I don't remember what they bought it for. Maybe they bought the home for about 220,000, 230,000, something of that nature. And they've been there for a few decades. And they had children. Their children went to Cypress Bay High School. They ultimately went to college somewhere. They're out of the house. And then years later, the couple basically called me and they said, "Hey, Marty, you know, we're in this big house in Weston Hills. We'd like to move to downtown Fort Lauderdale, but we don't know if we can afford the taxes on a condo in downtown Fort Lauderdale." So I looked at it for them. And it turned out that because they owned the property for so long, they were paying taxes on right about $400,000 of value. But their market value was $900,000. So they had $500,000 of value they weren't paying taxes on. They then bought a condo in downtown Fort Lauderdale for right about, they sold their home in Weston, took those proceeds, bought a condo in Fort Lauderdale for right about $900,000. And then we took that full $500,000 of value that they weren't paying taxes on in Weston, brought it over to Fort Lauderdale, and it dropped their value that they pay tax on to about $400,000. It basically made it to where they really weren't paying much more in taxes, and that's why they were able to afford that new property. And I like to bring that up because portability really can give people the opportunity to afford another home. Portability also gives people the comfort of moving, knowing that they're still going to be protected if they go somewhere else. And realtors are just so important to our office with regard to that information, because realtors are, when they let their clients know that, they have their clients call us, we're able to help them. We provide their portability value to them, and that really helps people save a lot of money. So I wanted to bring that up. I could go on and on forever. And I just really appreciate you all allowing me to serve as your property appraiser. I love this job. And if there is anything we could ever do for you, please just let me know. Does anybody have any questions, anything I can answer?
Yes, I'll start.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
for that overview, that was great. So I just want to clear up a couple things that I've heard in the past. When it comes to the homestead, I heard that there was like a portion that they would do 25,000 and then another portion. Are they not doing that anymore? Because I heard
That is
off the top.
That's a great question. So basically, it's how much of the value do you get for a homestead exemption when you get it? That is such a great question, Melissa. So basically, the homestead exemption overall is $50,000 worth of value. So what happens is when you buy a property, let's say there's a property for $100,000. That's what it's valued at. If somebody buys it, it's 100 grand. That's what the value of the property is. The first $25,000 is your initial homestead exemption. That's taken off that you don't pay taxes on. Then what happens is you pay taxes on the next 25,000. So from 25,000 to 50,000. Then your second homestead exemption kicks in after that. So from 50,000 to 75,000 is when you get that additional $25,000 of value taken off the tax roll that you don't pay taxes on. It doesn't apply to school taxes, but it applies to every other taxing authority. And the way it's set up that way, so that so basically it's set up that way so that properties that are under 75,000, let's say they're $50,000 in value, people would still have to pay taxes on that 25 between. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Makes sense.
It's a great question.
Yes.
Is excellent question.
And my other question was regarding the portability. I know with Homestead you have you have a deadline in March.
Yeah.
So with portability, what's the deadline, or can you do that year round?
That is such a great question as well. And actually, I'm so glad you brought that up, because the people of Florida voted for something awesome in the November election. And that was where they actually extended the deadline to be able to use them. Thank you so much for reminding me. I can't believe I totally forgot about this. So the first thing is with regard to homestead exemptions and other exemptions, the legislature, the deadline is technically March 1st, March 31st, March 1st. But the legislature gave property appraisers, if they want, the ability to move the deadline to September 18th. And of course I did. So for at least in Broward County, you have all the way till September 18th to apply for any exemption on your property, homestead included. Portability is really a great thing when it comes to the amount of time now that you have to be able to utilize it. So now, because of it used to be prior to this November, that you had 2 tax years to be able to transfer your portability value. And so, in a tax year for our purposes starts on January 1st. That's what we call the date of assessment, the date that we determine the value of all property. So let's say that what I spoke about, that let's say that didn't pass in November. We're still within the old law. Let's say you sold your home today and it is November 18th. Your tax year would have started on January 1st. You really would have only had basically a year and less than 2 months to establish your new homestead to transfer your portability. Now, with this new law passing, basically the people of Florida amended the Constitution to make it 3 tax years. Now you have an additional year. So now technically, let's say you sold your home today on that same scenario, your tax year started on January 1st. Now you have 2 years and a couple months to be able to transfer it to your new homestead. So it's really a great thing. I always tell everybody, if you are thinking about selling your property and you're thinking about buying another property, thinking about renting your property, if you want to wait a while, give us a holler and we'll let you know exactly how long you have to be able to transfer, to establish your new homestead to transfer your portability. And also you can use portability anywhere in Florida and as many times as you want. It just means you transfer one homestead to the other. You can go Broward to Broward, Broward to Miami-Dade, Miami-Dade to the Panhandle and back. It's a great thing. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it certainly does. So tell me a little bit about how COVID is affecting your office. Is it affecting any processing times for anything? Any of these homestead applications? How's it going?
That is such a great question. COVID is horrible on so many levels. The only encouraging news is, just on another note, is it looks like hopefully we'll be coming up with a vaccine soon. And I hope that they're able to get those out as quickly as possible so we all can get back to normal. But as you know, so many people have suffered through COVID. And I'll tell you what our office has been doing, and then also tell you what's affected property values for tax purposes. So our office itself has done a really good job during COVID. And the reason being is because we have an excellent IT team that really gave our staff the ability to do a very good job by remotely working from home. And a good example is, we have to, basically view every single property in the county constantly to see for tax purposes and determine a value for it and to see if additions are added to it. Well, now our staff constantly is using satellite imagery, looking down, and they can see every aspect of a property. They can figure out the size of the property. They can do all the stuff they could do in the office at home. And that's really good. Customer service wise, we've set it up to where, generally we help thousands upon thousands of people every single year, and thousands of people come into our office. Since we've been closed to the public until recently, everybody basically in our office has participated in taking phone calls. So if somebody would call our office, it would ring to somebody's cell phone, but it comes up basically as our office number. And they will talk to thousands of people every single day. They'll also sign them up for applications online. So it's gone very, very well. A couple areas where, I'm looking forward to getting back to, but of course we couldn't. We usually have a very, very robust, what we call mobile exemption information team. Actually, that's what Susan, who's on, is a part of. And they go to, oh my goodness, they'll go to 1,000 events a year, for example, and kind of bring our office to the public. And of course that has stopped a little bit, but they still have done a great job of trying to figure out other ways to reach the public. So that's kind of how our office is operating very well, but it's definitely a little bit different. Now, when it comes to the way COVID has affected property values for tax purposes, it's kind of a mixed bag, and it depends whether it's commercial or it's residential. So residential, as you know, you all are in the real estate industry. The residential real estate market is really booming right now, and people are paying top dollar for properties. And I'll tell you, when COVID first started, let's say February or March, when people started remotely working from home and there were less showings, generally our office handles about 300 property transfers a day in Broward County. That's how many properties change hands or are sold, which is a lot. When that happened, it actually went down probably to about 100. So it dropped by about 2/3. But something that didn't change at that time was the value that people were paying for properties. That actually held steady and kept increasing. Now, as you know, people are back to showing properties and they're doing it safely. They're kind of figuring out exactly how to do it. And we're back now to about 300 property transfers a day, and property values are really increasing for residential property. So there's really not a hit to the residential real estate market. Where there likely will be a hit is to the commercial real estate market. And the reason being is because we determine the value of property on January 1st every single year. And so when January 1st comes in just a month or so, we're going to look at the data from this year to determine what the values of those properties were. And one way that we determine the value of commercial property is through income, basically the amount of income that property produces. So what'll happen in January of this year is many businesses who really suffered and have had just a hard time will bring their income into us, and they'll show us that they had a high vacancy rate, or their net operating income was very, very much down, and they'll show us their expenses. They'll show us all kinds of information. And although I can't say for sure, I can say more than likely that is going to decrease the value of many of those properties for tax purposes. And that may lead also to a shortfall in revenue that local governments will need to be able then to operate. So that's kind of my, I hope that answers your question. That was a long-winded response.
I have a question about that, about the commercial as well. So
yes,
that definitely answers it. Any of my team members have any questions that you'd like to ask?
Oh, you guys are awesome. I want to say I've enjoyed this. So, oh, I'm sorry.
I have one more question that I'm going to.
Of course. Yes, of course.
As far as value disputes, I know that, I've had a couple of clients that have gone in to, get their value down, which I'm sure is a challenge right now. But what is the actual turnaround time, and what documentation are they looking for to be able to process a value dispute?
That is such a good question. It really is, Melissa. And it depends. And I'll tell you, so for example, I'll give you a few examples. So our goal, like I said, is just to find the real value of property. People should only pay their fair share, nothing more, nothing less. And if we can see information and data from somebody that'll help us be able to reduce the value of the property, I always will. I'll never increase it on them, but we'll definitely reduce it. And I'll give you an example. So when we value property, we do it on what's called the mass appraisal method. We're not fee appraisers. We don't go into people's homes. One, there's just too many homes in Broward County for us to do that, and it would be illegal. So we can't do that. So we have to value things based on a mass appraisal scale. And what we do is we'll look, let's say, at your property, and we will look at all the properties like your property that sold the year before. And we'll restructure those properties to fit the location and the size of your property to determine a value for it. So in a situation like that, when it's an existingly owned property, somebody will call me and say, hey, Marty, I see that you valued my property at this. And I understand that you did it based on these other comparable sales, for example, in my neighborhood. I get it. But my property is different from those. And the reason being is because those were updated, mine's not. There's water damage in mine. We've had really significant structural problems. There's something about my property that's different from those properties. And I always tell them, like, okay, well, send me that information. Let us look through it. And if that information gives us the ability to reduce the value, we always will. And if it doesn't, we'll let people know, okay, this is why we still arrived at this value. And we give them all their options going forward for the value adjustment board or however it is. The other thing is, let's say it's a new property. Somebody just purchased it. So the way that we value that property for tax purposes, if it's an arm's length transaction, is usually based on the purchase price minus 10%. So let's say somebody buys a property for $200,000. We would, or let's say $300,000. We would, that would be the new value. We take off 10%, which is like realtor fees, things that have nothing to do with the value of the property. And so now you're basically down to $270,000. Then you apply portability or exemptions. But sometimes people will say, Marty, I really overpaid for this property. And you can see that it's different from these other properties in my area that where people offer much less. And let's say I overpaid because I'm next to my dad, or I just really wanted this property. It wasn't worth this. Or we also bought the furniture in this property, all these different things that actually where they could bring to us, which is information that could help us reduce it. So I always tell everybody, if you ever have any concerns, just give me a holler, come on in and we'll go through it together. And again, if it's commercial property, people can, they can also share their income with us as well, which really gives us an idea of what the value of the property is. I hope that answered the question, Melissa.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great questions. And you know, and for everybody on the Zoom meeting, you know, our office, as again, we're just public servants. You know, you all are nice enough to elect me to be your Broward County Property Appraiser, and the other few hundred people in our office, we serve the public. Our goal is not to, we don't make money. We want to actually, we want to help you. And that's what our goal is. That's what we're supposed to do. So on anything, on any client, your own properties, whatever it is, use us as a resource. If you're going to change the deed, whatever you're going to do, there's so much information that we have about property and so much information that we can give to you so you can make the best decision for yourself. And also you can pass that on to a client so they can make a great decision as well. So please use us as a resource. And do you all have, I'm going to put my information in the chat real fast. Let's see. Oh, they did. So I see my phone numbers there. Let me also give you my email. All day, every day, I answer emails. It is my favorite thing, just because it is a great way to help the public. And to give you an idea, last year, I answered about 10,000 emails. And I was so excited because my 10,000th email was basically on December 31st. I wanted to do it all year. I do have but I will say this, so I technically did send myself that email to make it 10,000, but that's besides the point. It was an email that I answered. I am my own constituent. But I love it. Answering emails is a great way to help the public, and I do it all day, every day. Just email me directly, and I will help any which way that I can.
Thank you so much. You've been so helpful and informative. We want to thank you for your time. Thank you to Scott for joining us, and Susan. Susan, congratulations to you as well.
Yay. Absolutely.
So this was very helpful to all of us, and
thank you.
Yes, we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Melissa. Oh, and Melissa, before I forget, I'm so sorry. May I say one more thing? The other thing I always love to bring this up. So as I said before, realtors are our window to the world. And one thing that we do, of course, is, you know, what many realtors do is we give them our brochure, which has all tax saving exemption. Yes, that's the one. And they perfect. I want, if you need any more, if anybody needs any, oh, thank you guys. It has been, oh, thank you. We get thousands and thousands of people reach out to our office solely because their real estate agent gave them that. And so thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Awesome. That made me feel so good. Thank you. Well, everybody have a wonderful day and a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.